Uh, so as mentioned, we started off with sort of the data project. We were part of a data strategy mentorship program, so we really focused in on the data at the start. However, as we moved through the month in collecting it, we realized it just wasn't enough. And for us, it really did not make sense for us not to do contextual research to help support our work. And we did this in three main ways. First was collecting domain knowledge, doing a bit of academic research, looking at previous literature, and also keeping track of news sources and recent events. So for the case of domain knowledge, we were collecting social media data, which is a tricky subject in itself. We were collecting mainly from Twitter and Google Trends. So we wanted to think about like who was using Twitter, sort of what was the capacity of Twitter, like how many tweets can we actually collect? If we're collecting only in one part of the day, are we only getting like one slice of the pie? I mean, really thinking about that. We also looked at literature on critical race theory and also how to talk about race in a sensitive and intentional way as we were moving into learning more about this data and learning more about this issue. And also thinking about the Black Lives Matter movement as a whole and thinking about the history of it and the timeline and progression leading up to the events of last summer, because we knew it wasn't a singular event, it was a collection of events that led up to it. So we really traced back to like 2012 when the Black Lives Matter movement as a phrase came up following the murder of Trayvon Martin. We also looked at academic research. We were all students when we did this project, so we definitely made the most of our student resources, going into databases, journals, and using those skills that we had developed in our research classes. We found that there was a lot of talk about slacktivism, hashtag activism, and sort of it made us think about like, we're doing this work, this data work around social media, but what are the limitations and implications of that work? Should we be like bolstering it so that more people think about hashtags and think about like social media activism? Should we be like, it helped us interpret our work a bit deeper. And of course, news sources and recent events. The protests were happening literally outside our windows as we were collecting this data. And it was really important that we were making sure that all the work that we were finding on the data side, the quantitative data side, matched up to the events that were happening. So every day we had like a Slack channel where we just kind of, if the New York Times was pushing out a report, we would like archive it and check it with our own work. If it was Juneteenth, it helped us explain why some of the data we were collecting was talking about reparations or talking about Juneteenth, and really helped us gain that human aspect to our data. Understanding what people are talking about, what they've talked about before, and also how we can talk about it in a more sensitive way. So talking about limitations, we definitely realized that we were only looking at a limited range of data. So we had all these cool visualizations, we created this whole report, we did all this contextual research, but we definitely wanted to be sure that everyone seeing our work knew that this was limited. We only were able to collect up to whatever our computers could store. So that is one limitation. And also another thing we found was that many of these discussions were highly localized on the interpersonal and community level. So social media is really great because you can just collect all these different voices from all these different people that you might never be able to meet. However, we realized that a lot of these conversations had already been happening offline, that for me, as well as many of our other team members, we realized that we were having these discussions with our family members, with our friends, and these weren't necessarily on social media. So that added another dimension to our work that we wanted to make sure that was relevant to our findings. So after we did all that work, we collected research and we worked on it for about like a month and a half, 2 months, from the beginning of June all the way till sort of mid-July. We compiled it into a interactive sort of web experience. We created a website that had a hub of resources, that had all our visualizations, as well as the written reports, timeline, all these different things. And we actually have a link to our site at the end if any of you want to check it out. So that was kind of the culmination of our work. And at the end of the program, we presented it at a conference to nonprofits and other sort of nonprofit supporters that were in the network of the nonprofit and consulting agency that helped host this program. So it was a really great experience to not only do the work, but also showcase the work and get feedback from people that were directly working with this movement, with sort of activists on the scene. So why did we do this? This was an sort of, can be said in a way, an unpaid program. We weren't paid. We weren't getting school credit. Why did we do this? It was basically doing homework in the middle of summer during a pandemic. And we really put a lot of effort and heart into this, as well as our teammates and the other people in the program. And these were kind of the three main takeaways I think we found, was that these were issues that were important to our own communities, and to sort of, we saw the stakes in sort of thinking about these topics and applying our work. We worked on Black Lives Matter, but other people in our program thought about air quality and redlining. We had people thinking about police funding, about affirmative action. These were all issues that were very important to our own communities. Additionally, the program was really a safe space to ask questions and test our skills. Most of the people in the program were students, either undergraduate or sort of at the graduate level. So it was a really great opportunity for us to connect with each other in a time when we really all were quite isolated, literally. And so it was a safe space to ask questions, test out skills, and apply our skills to issues that matter to us. And of course, having that supportive team, I don't think I would have been able to do it without sort of the other three people on my team. And I don't think anyone else on the team feels differently. Really having that shared passion and working together on that project gave us a lot of confidence and sort of motivation to move forward. So thinking about change and thinking about sort of data and sort of the role of these interdisciplinary projects, we really think that the main takeaway is community, to learn about your own community, to connect with the people in your community, and then finding your niche of what you can bring. In this sense, we were a community of sort of data nerds, people that were interested in data and data strategy. And we learned about this community through talking to our mentors, connecting with our fellows, connecting with our mentors' mentors, and really creating that sort of that ecosystem of people who had similar passions and interests. And then we found our niche and found our skills within that. As mentioned, me and Mickey are not your traditional data scientists. My background's in communication studies. Mickey's is with economics. Other people in the program were like English majors, business majors, marketing majors, but we all had similar interests about sort of the role of data and tech in social impact. So bringing those skills, it wasn't like you needed to be an activist, you needed to have a background in XYZ to participate, but it was bringing your specific skills to enhance that community and doing it in a sort of intentional way. So we did all that last summer. Why are we talking to you now in March 2021? Well, since then, our team has kind of not stopped working since June. Following the program, we stayed connected to our mentors, and we really wanted to learn more about the role of data in nonprofits. We joined G-Beta Social Impact at the end of fall last year. They're a pre-accelerator program based in the Midwest and really helped us understand sort of the more operational and organizational aspects of social enterprises, of nonprofits, of if we wanted to continue this as sort of a for-profit venture, what would it look like? Like, what are the stakes of investors in sort of working with social impact, with all those different things. And they've been really, really helpful in mentoring us. Earlier this year, we were accepted as fellows with the Center for Technology, Society, and Policy with UC Berkeley, with this amazing opportunity to continue learning about these different data methodologies in the mission-driven space. And most recently, we've added on a few awesome students from the data discovery program at UC Berkeley as well, to sort of join us on this mission to create technologies that are accessible and useful to the mission-driven space, as well as being part of the spring 2021 cohort for the Citrus Foundry. Right now, as Activism Always specifically, we are hosting our social media strategy clinic. So we're providing low cost sort of like data reporting and other sort of like social media related workshops with mission driven organizations, small businesses, and nonprofits. So we can kind of bring everything we've been learning and applying actually into these communities. So that is all about us. Thank you so much for listening in. Here are all the different ways to contact us below as well. So we have our website, also the website to check out our BLM Always work, and you can email us any questions as well. So.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys. And if anyone has any questions, we'd love to take them right now. Okay, we have one in the chat. Thank you, Andres. What goals do we have for our new organization? I think that's a very great question. I think overall, our main goal is to be able to help the mission driven sector make their jobs as easy as possible and as effective as possible so that they can focus on making an impact in what they set out to do. And I'll let Chelsie kind of add on to that.
Yeah, definitely. So as we mentioned about like the aspect of community, we're really interested in bringing sort of data talent and student talent into sort of the data for social good space. We've been working with students at UC Berkeley most recently to sort of think about how they can create technologies that could be sort of more accessible for nonprofits. So we're building some stuff with them, which is really, really cool. But we really just want to build out this community and talk more about this topic. We're definitely not the only people working in this space. So we really just love to connect and network and really share how our experience has affected us as students.
I have a question. I was wondering how you like approached measuring like or would approach measuring like effectiveness of social media. If you could like dive into more of your data collection methods.
For sure. I think that's a really interesting question that you asked, Meredith, because that kind of was our main goal starting out and something that's we realized was actually kind of pretty difficult to do with social media. One of our main motivations in kind of starting this project was that there are a lot of people talking about doing stuff, and then there was the second group of people who are actually doing things, and we wanted to kind of expand that second group, and so we were trying to kind of get a baseline for that. But with Twitter, of course, and social media, people don't always like tell the truth. So they may say that they're going to a protest and they may not actually go to a protest. And so the most that we kind of could do was collect their intent to be actionable. So their intent to donate to a Black owned business or their intent to sign a petition or attend a protest and things like that. Chelsie, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think working with social media is really hard because there's just so many different types of people. There's so many different motivations for being on social media. And that was really hard with just the quantitative work. As mentioned, like we started out by just kind of going like, let's see if we can check like the longevity of this movement. Like how long will this be like the #1 hashtag, #1 trending topic? And then a few weeks into it, we're like, nah, this isn't going to work. We actually need to think about this more broadly, like do some research on news sources, think about like literary research, what usually happens, is this any different, and just contextualizing it. So we definitely saw that it had to be an interdisciplinary project. We cannot just analyze the statistics and come out with an interesting report.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, Chelsie, but I was pleasantly surprised by the amount of people on social media who at least like wanted to do something about it. I feel like I was a lot more pessimistic going into the project, and just from everyone's like supportive voices and stuff, there were a lot of people who were willing to kind of look at themselves and our society in the mirror and do what was necessary in order to affect change, which I personally found really inspiring.
Yeah, I think another thing is that our technical team, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, they are really, really, really cool people. And they were able to like use their natural language processing techniques and these sort of techniques they've learned in classes to analyze actual text of the social media. So instead of just counting like number of posts, we could actually like look at the language. So even just starting to do that, it was really cool seeing those sentiments and being like, oh, people are really angry. Or seeing like, oh, people are really excited about this one thing. I think for Juneteenth, we got so many sort of like positive sentiments because people were really like